All right, what is going on, peoples? Listen, this question gets asking me a lot, but or actually, let's start off by just saying, um, look, this is Pimpy's Investment Chat. It's a Facebook group. It's the same as a YouTube channel. The link will be in the description. I encourage you all to join it. There is a lot of information being shared in here. There's information on the dinar, information on the Vietnam dong. There's information on cryptocurrencies. There's other types of investments in here I think you guys will benefit from. All right, and it's all free. So I encourage you. I'll leave the link in the description. Just go ahead and follow it. Okay. So a lot of people have been asking me, besides the Vietnam dong and besides the Iraqi dinar, are there other currencies that we should be keeping an eye on? And I said, yeah, actually, there are. You know what I mean? So, but people got to understand that not every situation is going to be the same as what happened to the Kuwait dinar. Even what's happening with Iraq's dinar is not going to be the same as what happens to Kuwait's dinar. Um, Actually, there's a good argument for it and a good argument against it. Okay, so, Kuwait was invaded. But the amount of currency they had in circulation at the time was much lower than Iraq has. So, anyways, having said that, um, there's good. I know the Iraqi government wants the rate to be reinstated where it was at 320. You guys heard me talk about this in other videos. I saw the pitch by the CBI Bank and the IMF saying, look, it should be around $1.34 and stay that way for about 3 years. But I don't want to repeat myself. What I'm saying is this: there's other currencies out there in which you could keep an eye on, and you might be able to make a little bit of money. You're obviously not going to make the same kind of return that the people that invested into the Kuwait dinar or possibly what's going to happen to the Iraqi dinar. Okay, it's just those types of things are unique situations. We know this. So, if we see one country invading another, and then all of a sudden the IMF and the World Bank and United Nations get involved and they say, hey, we're going to go ahead and devalue their currency dramatically, well, then that's the kind of country we want to keep an eye on, all right? But not every country is in that situation. What we're going to be talking about is countries we know have been manipulating their currency, and we might see some kind of return on, given what's happening here in the near future with the new currency manipulation policies. All right. So let's talk about that. People ask me what countries am I keeping an eye on. I'll just share with you who I'm keeping on and why. All right. So one of the ones that is brought up is Venezuela. Venezuela's currency has suffered from super high inflation. So, it's suffered to the point where the money isn't even any good. It's scattered all over the damn streets. Their inflation's at like 1,000,000%. Their money has no value. Look at it. Now is not the time to invest in Venezuela. All right. So we'll get back to that. But like I said, what's happening in Venezuela and other countries is not the same as what happened in Kuwait. Okay. So, before we start focusing on other countries, I think we should really pay attention to what's happening to the economy around the world. In an earlier video, I explained using this chart to people that it's time for us to move into a new type of reserve system, and that the current fiat experiment has once again failed, and it also explained that if you do the research, you will find that each time we move from one system into the next, at the end, leaving one system and going into the next system, and I said this, you'll find that there magically, every single time, has been some type of pandemic going on around the world. Now, having said that, you have to really think, we're at the end of this failed fiat current system. It's lived its time. It's time. We are getting ready to move into a new one. This is how they move us from one system into another. Okay, so I'm not surprised. I said this months ago. Don't be surprised if some new plague comes up. I know that's kind of screwed up to say, but that usually goes hand in hand. They always have. Whether it's done on purpose or whether it's done accidentally, who knows? But the point is, it's just weird how they magically go hand in hand. Okay, so there's usually some type of major event that goes hand in hand with us moving from one to another. So you got to ask yourself, is the coronavirus that new plague and the excuse for a worldwide economical crash that will push us into whatever new system that they've already have set up? We'll see. Everybody's thinking it's cryptocurrencies. What they're going to say is, look, China's already washing their money. They're going to say it's too expensive to wash. Then they're going to tell you that, hey, if you handle currency, you could get a virus. You could die. That wouldn't be surprising to me. It wouldn't, to see them try to pull that crap. But having said that, I'm just letting you know, whenever we move from one type of reserve system into another, it's usually met. Lynette Zhang, when she did the study, she could tell you that each time there was some kind of plague that was going on. So right now we're seeing that. Whether the rumors or the truth, God only knows. But there's citizen journals over in China right now recording the government coming out, forcing people into these buses and into quarantine locations. They're burning 10 to 20,000 bodies a day. And you could go onto a heat map over in China. You can see there's 2 constant burn places, and that's supposed to be the locations. Again, whether you believe it or not, it's up to you. There's reports that a town of 50,000 people in Italy now is in quarantine. Iraq is suffering from these types. No, not Iraq, but Iran. Iran is suffering from people in the coronavirus. There's people in Italy. It's happening all over the place. And just to show you that whether you believe in the whole New World Order or whatever you want to call it, the whole New World Order, just to show you that when they have an agenda and they want to push it, they don't give a crap. Trump has been very good about quarantining and making sure that, the coronavirus keeps from getting into the United States, only to find out that some of the people that were in quarantine that flew here in the United States, they let them go without them being examined. Trump is pissed. You know what I mean? He has every right to be, but that would be just like a move by the so-called globalists or a new world order, if you believe in that kind of stuff, for them to just do whatever the hell they want to go ahead and continue to affect the people in our country, because we're not really experiencing the type of things that other countries are. South Korea as well, Sweden, Germany, these people have people who are dying. And I'm talking about by the thousands, okay? So if you're one of those people that believe in the whole New World Order, think Georgia Stones, all right, where it talks about reducing the world population down to 500 million. Okay, nonetheless, let's get off the crazy thinking. But like I said, I just think it's weird that it goes from one to another. And it's important that we monitor what's going on with the coronavirus before you start dumping your money into other foreign currencies. Okay, I just wanted to bring that up. Okay, so one of the other things you have to understand is you have to understand what the exchange rate is. So an exchange rate is the price of a country's currency relative to other currencies. In other words, it is the rate at which one currency can be converted into another currency. And that's just an easy example. And you can see this here. You could pause it and read it if you want to. But coming down here, it gets into a little bit more detail. How much a currency is worth in relations to other currency is determined by the supply and demand for currencies in a foreign exchange market, the market in which foreign currencies are traded. The foreign exchange market is substantial and has expanded in recent years. Trading in foreign exchange markets averages 5.1 trillion per day in April 2016. That's the last time the data was available. Up to from 3.3 trillion in 2007. So it went from 3.3 trillion a day to 5.1 trillion a day in, I'd say about, 9 years? That's not too shabby, all right? So anyways, the relative demand for currency reflects the underlying demand for goods and assets dominated in that currency. So we're going to get into that just a little bit, okay? A large international capital flow can have a strong influence on the demand for various currencies. The government, typically the central bank, can use policies to shape the supply of its currency in an international capital market. So let's get into that just a little bit, because this is what's going on with those other currencies that we are paying attention to, which is the Iraqi dinar and the Vietnam dong. But there's also other ones, and we'll talk about that, okay? So Now, I was glad to see this because it's been driving me crazy. I've been reading so many reports about Iraq keeping a dual rate, and I couldn't understand what it was for. So here it is, right here. You have a nominal rate and a real rate exchange. The nominal rate is the rate at which two currencies can be exchanged, or how much one currency is worth in terms of another currency. The real exchange rate measures the value of a country's goods against those of another country. Essentially, the real exchange rate adjusts the nominal exchange rate for differences in prices at rates of inflation across countries. Okay, so for in Iraq situation, they actually do a lot of comparison to the US dollar, right? Bilateral versus effective exchange rate. The bilateral exchange rate is the value of one currency in terms of another currency. The effective exchange rate is the value of a currency against the weight average of several currencies, which is a basket. You hear us talk about that from time to time. The basket can be weighed in different ways, such as by share of world trade or GDP. The Bank of International Settlements, here it is. There's that name again, BIS. They keep coming up. And they're going to play a big role in what's coming up, all right? For example, publishes data on effective exchange rates, all right? So you have to know what these are. And as I go along and I learn more, I try to share with you. But for a while there, I had no idea why they were keeping track of two rates. And I understand now the need to keep them close together. So if you think about what Iraq does, they keep track of what they call a nominal and a real rate, all right? So what they do is they create policies that keep these as close together as possible. Okay, so that's an important thing to know. Okay, so now I bring this one up again. I've mentioned this in an example before, because this is a perfect example to explain about the rate that Iraq might come out with. If the rate is too high, it makes it impossible for Iraq to compete with other countries' goods that are being imported into Iraq. Too low, and it could cause a problem with inflation. So here's my example. If the rate comes out at 320, let's just say, it does. Sure, we benefit from it, but it just hurts Iraq. If the rate's too high, the cost of labor and supplies to go ahead and manufacture a TV might cost them $600. Then they can sell for $600. China, on the other hand, whose currency is really, really low, and by the time they do all their supplies and labor and everything else, they can sell you the same TV for $200. So which TV do you want to buy? You're going to buy this one because it's cheaper, of course. This is why each country monitors their exchange rate closely. In order to be competitive, it has to be fair. This is the issue that Trump is dealing with. He doesn't think it's okay for countries like China to manipulate their currencies and devalue it so low that other countries cannot compete with them. So it becomes better for a country to import goods from another country in order to keep their consumers happy. The problem with that, it affects the economy of Iraq. All right, they need to be able to manufacture in order to stay valid. This is why Trump pitched a big fit and did everything he could to bring back manufacturing in the United States, because it goes to show that every crisis, in order to come out of any real recession, especially a depression, in order to come out of a recession, a country has to have a lot of manufacturing going on. So Trump has done everything he could to make sure manufacturing has gone back. Sure, we might take it into pants and be for short term, but long term, it's really better for us. So I'll give you another example. Let's just use Nike. So Nike, as we know, they sell their shoes for about $185. We know some of them are even higher. It just depends. So how much does Nike pay to have them shoes made overseas? They paid roughly $25. Think about that. Between the labor and materials of another country, it costs Nike $25 a pair. Okay, so, and it goes on to talk about other things and their shipping per shoes, the import duty tax, all these other things, and then royalties to Michael Jordan. And all in all, what ends up happening is the total shoe comes out to about $41.30. And then they go ahead and they sell it, wholesale for $92.50. And so they get a profit of about $51.20. All right, that's really, really outstanding profit margins there. This is why Nike's doing so good, it's because they outsource the manufacturing of the shoes. All right. You see up here, there's only one company in America, New Balance, that owns their own shoe factory. Everybody, for the most part, outsources it. And so, what kind of countries benefit from that? Well, Nike ships most of their shoes by ocean freights from China, Vietnam, and Indonesia. What do we know about these three countries? What do they all have in common? I'll give you a second to think about it. All right, I'm glad you're done. Anyways, all three of these countries are tagged by Trump as currency manipulators. Do you understand why Trump is doing what he's doing? These countries benefit from a devalued currency. We can't compete with that here in the United States, nor would we tolerate it. All right, we demand a certain wage and for a certain cost of living, and even then, that's not. We're barely getting by paycheck to paycheck. Okay. So here's what happens. If you can see the text right here, look at this. Text contains those laws in effect on February 22nd, 2020. There's that date, February 22nd. I heard a lot of people in the dinar community talking about they thought the dinar rate was going to change on that date. Here's why. They thought, oh, okay. People were saying they were insider people were telling them or whatever. No, that's not why. This is why right here. Because of the part of the new trade currency monitoring took effect then, okay? So, yeah, I'm willing to bet that though a lot of these people got this information or got this date and then passed it off as they thought this was going to happen on this date. And basically what happens is the secretary comes in and he meets with Congress, and Congress and them review all the different currency policies that are going to changes that need to be done. And in this report, this is what's got to be in this report. You can see what's included in this report. Just quickly, each report submitted under subsection shall contain. So there's analysis of currency market developments and relations between the United States dollar and the currencies of our major trade competitors. Notice it didn't say partners, it says competitors, all right? An evaluation of factors in the United States and other economies that underlie conditions in the currency market, including development in bilateral trade and capital flows. A description of currency interventions or other actions undertaken to adjust the actual exchange rate of the dollar. So there's other things on here, and I'll leave this for you, but you can see this is the stuff that they review. But also from here, just so you're aware, they start developing their currency policies, but also they start developing a monitoring list of countries that are on there, okay? So what had happened in the past, just so you understand, our past trade agreements, like NAFTA, is one of them. And this has been going on since Reagan. So from Reagan all the way up to Obama. So it's not just Democrat, Republicans. These guys have technically been selling our asses out to these foreign countries, and I'm going to explain how, okay? So although currency manipulation was addressed in previous agreements such as NAFTA, but there is either the trade agreements propose no penalties for manipulating, or the penalties were never enforced, and with good reasons. The vast majority of Congress members are often offered stocks in companies that benefit from devalued currency. Let me tell you how they do this legally. Let's pretend like I own ABC Company, and my stock is worth $1,000 per share. I can go to any congressperson and say, hey, I would like for you or offer you to buy shares, stock shares in my company. And I can legally sell it to that congressperson for $1 a share, $10 a share, and I'm going to offer them X amount of shares. They can do that legally. Do you see now? Do you see the conflict of interest there? So let's say my ABC company is producing mass pollution. I'm a huge environmental nightmare. But if I have enough Congress people who own shares that they bought for $1, that each one's worth, $1,000, and they were able to buy 10,000 of them, well, guess what I got to do? Hey, look at your values of stocks are going to go down if we can't make this little problem disappear. Did you know that's what they do? This is what's going on. This is what Trump's stopping. Yes, believe it or not. So, uh, so the vast majority of Congress are offered stocks in these companies that benefit from devalued currencies in other countries. And I'll give you some examples. So when you hear Congress tell you that fracking is bad and that fossil fuels or both should be banned, you'll find that their own interest in companies like Burisma, that was over in the Ukraine, a company that those same Congress members voted on to send subsidies to. In other words, taxpayer dollars. So here's the real story of what's going on in Burisma. Burisma is a gas company. So meanwhile, our Congress is telling us, hey, we need to pass this Green New Deal. It's the end of the environment. We got to stop fracking and we got to ban fossil fuels here in America. Okay, yeah, we got to ban producing fossil fuels. They don't fossil fuels altogether, but produce them. But meanwhile, they own shares and interest in Burisma. They do. They do. And then what happens is they also help send them subsidies. There's taxpayer dollars they're sending them, our taxpayer dollars. So when you see people like Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, and John Kerry all speaking out against Trump investigating Burisma, it isn't because he's abusing his power. You can do the research. It's because each one of them have a son that works for Burisma. This is how they funnel the money back to the Democrats, all right? But it's not just the Democrats. There's some Republicans out there, but for the vast majority of them, oh man, it really got rampant. And I'm talking about the corruption under Obama. And the Democrats were living in this great world and changing all the laws that would help keep them in power until our mean orange man came in there and he started cleaning house, all right? This is why Trump wants to investigate Burisma. He's going to expose all the corruption, not just in the Ukraine, not just because of Biden, but Pelosi's kid was there. Why do you think she tried to impeach Trump? We all knew she couldn't impeach Trump. We all knew that the charges against Trump were bullshit. We knew this. Why do you think John Kerry is trying to help get Trump out? Why do you think John Kerry's endorsing Joe Biden? Why do you think Joe Biden ran for office? Just so if you try to investigate him, he could say, hey, Trump's trying to investigate a political opponent who's running against him for president. That's not the truth. They're just trying to figure out how to get their ass out of trouble is all it is. You could do your research. You could look it up. So all the new trade agreements that Trump has put into place now specifically address currency manipulation and the penalties that are assessed for violating these agreements. No president's ever done this before. Okay, no president has ever done this before. So he's looking out for the interests of the United States. All right. Not only is that happening, but also it affects. The reason why politicians are against this, which Trump's doing, is because it affects their pockets and it affects their interests. Trust me, there's no laws that these guys pass that are better for us. They don't think about us. They don't give a shit. They just care about how their little corrupt crime family, their crime syndicate can get rich while the rest of us suffer. All right. So we're starting to see a swing in that area. We're seeing a change, whether you believe it or not. Anyways, with Trump's new agreements, all his new trade agreements that were done with China, Japan, Mexico, and with Canada, all of them specifically have addressed issues of currency manipulations with penalties, and that's important to know. Okay, so we also know that Trump has now developed new types of tariffs or new types of penalties for people who are suspicious of, or he labels as currency manipulators. And those policies go into effect as in April 6th. April 6th is one of the dates that we want to watch. Okay, it's one of those dates that we think we might see something happening with the Vietnam Dong. All right, so watch for April 6th because there might be a bunch of people making a move to get ahead of this ahead of time, or there might be some kind of probation period once this goes into effect for them to get their ducks in a row. If you go to my past videos, I show you what the criteria is. There's 3 things that they have to meet in order to get off of the currency manipulation list. Right now, Vietnam is violating all 3 of the criteria, so that's a good thing for us people holding on to the Vietnam Dong. Okay, so the United States will be adding new additional tariffs and penalties for currencies who or countries who devalue their currencies. And Trump has also been working with the trade organization on new policies that will be enforced. All right, so he's trying to make sure that's a fair, free trade is where he's trying to go with, but he wants a fair business out there, fair trade going on. No countries devaluing their currencies in which our companies then leave and go there and take advantage of it and turn around and sell their cheap crap back to us at a much higher marked up rate. No, that's not cool at all. All right. So for those of you who are Bernie bros or supporters, well, there you can just see that Trump's trying to do exactly what Bernie wants to do, and almost not exactly, and that is make it a more level playing field. All right, and what I mean by that is reducing the fact that companies can go over there, use undervalued currencies and cheap labor to manufacture goods only to resell them back here in the United States. Trump said, you do that crap, I'll slap a tax on you so big that you're going to want to bring your stuff back because it'll be cheaper to be here. And now you're seeing what's going on with the coronavirus over in China. It's putting a halt on a lot of economies around the world because so many companies in so many countries rely on China's cheap labor to manufacture parts and things they need. How Germany's going to hell. Volvo's one of their biggest sellers, and 40% of their the materials they need to make the Volvo are made in China. Most everything over there is on halt right now, right? So this isn't good for currencies anywhere. It's not good for markets anywhere. Anyways, so the president, of course, is taking remedy actions to waive this adverse impact. He's trying to do something about it. So now we have a monitoring list of countries that have devalued their currencies. And this would be the list we want to look at for those of you trying to figure out which countries could we also invest in which the currency would go up. So some of these would be a good investment to look at as a possible way to gain on the revaluation of their currencies, all right? But there's a couple things you have to take in consideration. You got to remember, again, not all of these are going to be like what happened in Kuwait and possibly what's going to happen over there in Iraq, okay? So I don't want you to confuse the two. So most of these would be something like, 2 to 3 to 5 to 10% increases, but not huge ones. But even so, if you know what to look for, you can make a nice little chunk of change. The thing we want to look for or as a good indicator is future strengths or weaknesses of each country's currency against the U.S. dollar. So that's what we want to look for. So let's here are the ones that I'm interested in. I'll tell you why I'm interested in these particular countries, okay? So Japan, we know that Japan, after struggling for about a decade, is about to benefit from a recent trade agreement that was done with Trump and the United States. The yen, and I think initially took a pretty good 7% increase. I might be wrong. You can look that up, but it was a pretty good jump in their currency just on the trade being signed. So the U.S. dollar is still stronger, but will eventually our U.S. market will make an adjustment because we've been going up and up and up. Eventually, there's going to be a market adjustment, or we're going to go through this crash. We're going to have a recession sooner or later, and when it happens, Japan's going to be going through an economical growth, which strengthens their dollar. As we're going through our struggles, our dollar weakens. As there's increases and ours decreases in value, then you're going to see rate change take place. So it's something that I will look for in the next couple years, just kind of monitoring that. But here's the biggies for me, okay? Okay, all the countries that surround the South China Sea, I think would be a good bet. Malaysia, Indonesia, Taiwan, Vietnam, all have benefited from the U.S.-China trade war. As hundreds of companies left China, they came into these other countries and they brought them all kinds of new businesses, all kinds of new jobs, and created a little bump in their economy. So these currencies, in my opinion, are a safe bet to invest in, as those countries will grow economically over the next few years, and eventually our currency will devalue, okay, over the next few years. So now is probably a good time to pick up on some of these. The ones I will look at is Malaysia. Malaysia is known as the new Silicon Valley. That would probably be a good bet. Taiwan, the bot, that's a really good one too. So, there's some good moves there. Of course, we know about Vietnam, but Vietnam's kind of suffering because unfortunately their biggest trade partner was China. So but eventually they're going to get on their feet. All right. The Philippines as well. All right. So any of those countries that surround the South China Sea, those will probably be a good bet to jump on. As far as what they're going to go up in percentage wise, I have no idea. And it's not going to happen right away. So if you bought some now, you could hold on them over the next few years. I think it's a safe bet to see, you can see somewhere between, 5, 7, 10% increase in value. Maybe. Nah, let's go with 2, 3, and 5% increase. All right. That's why these are not like what's happening in Kuwait. But if you're looking for something to invest in that has a possibility of really growing, this would be the one. These would be some of them. Here's the one, believe it or not, that I think is going to happen, and I'm actually looking into buying now. And that is Mexico peso. This would be a great grab. So after Trump signed a new trade deal, it will boost the Mexico economy. So here's one thing that's not talked about in the media. It's a fact about the trade deal that's put together between Canada and Mexico and the United States. The manufacturing companies that stayed in Mexico, and I'm talking about the auto manufacturing companies in Mexico, they had to make sure that the employees were paid no less than $16 an hour in order for the United States to stay competitive with Mexico. Those types of wages, of course, in Mexico for Mexicans would be a huge boost to their economy. Yes, that happened. Yes, that's right. Trump did a trade deal that benefited everybody, including those in Mexico. So if you work in auto manufacturing in Mexico, you can guarantee that you're going to have no less than $16 an hour. That is huge wages for workers in Mexico, okay? And so that, in my opinion, is going to drive the value of their currency up over the next few years. I think that's going to be one of the biggest jumps we see in currency value, as long as the government could get a little more stable and get away from the cartel, okay? Now back to the one I talked about in the beginning, in which we've seen their currencies all over the streets, all right? Venezuela. Here's my thing about Venezuela. It's one of the ones that I'm looking for. I'm looking forward to grabbing this in the future, all right? Look at what's going on with 9 blowing facts about Venezuela's economy, okay? So, Venezuela is going through one of the worst political and economical crises in modern history. Once a stable democracy and economical powerhouse, Venezuela is now on the brink of a collapse. And the country is effectively insolvent. In other words, they have nothing going on for them. But let's go over why this is a good investment. Once they make the new currency, they're not going to use the old one. We've seen it all over the street. Okay, right now, inflation in Venezuela is at 10 million. I think I said 1 million. Okay, I was off. 10 million. That's ridiculous. This is not what we want to see. We need the new government to get in there, stability back in the country. So here's why you should look into Venezuela as a possible investment. Venezuela has the world's largest proven oil reserves, but its production today is 2.3 times less than it was in the 1970s. So a stable government, I'm sure, would be happy to get in there and increase the oil productions, just like what happened in Kuwait, just like what's happening in Iraq. Increased oil productions will add value to the currency, all right? Venezuela used to be the wealthiest country in South America. Used to be. That means it could get there again, okay? President Maduro has ordered 26 minimum wage increases in his 6 years in office, including a 300% increase earlier this year. Gee, does this sound familiar? We need a living wage. Bernie Sanders is going to give you a living wage. No, he's not. Okay? I showed you an example by James Woods that should make you think. Bernie Sanders wants to raise everybody's minimum wage up to $15 an hour. Yay, Bernie, you sound like such a hero for the poor folks. But he also wants to tax you at 52%. So think about this. So if you're making, real quick, let's say you're making $15 an hour times 40-hour week times 52 pay weeks in a year. Congratulations, $31,200. Guess what the cutoff is that for Bernie, for you to pay 52% taxes? 29,000. Anybody making 29,000 or more must pay 52% taxes. All right? So just simple math. If you multiply this times 52%, nope, let's try this again. Let me fix this really super quick. So just do like this. $15 an hour times 40 hours times 52 weeks. You make that amount. Minus 52% for taxes. So you get $16,224. All right? So again, divide that by, hold on, I should have did it this way. Okay, so 16,224, 16,224, 16,224. $16,244 divided by 2080. Is that right? Yep. Congratulations, you're now making $7.80 an hour. That's what it comes out to. So you see, you got to be careful about what these guys promise you. Fair living wages. He's going to give it to you and take it away from you. This is what this guy did. 26 times he raised minimum wage. Okay, so no, it's not smart. It's not economical. Just give me a break. But anyways, back to Venezuela. In 2018, experts estimated that in Venezuela, a roll of toilet paper costs 2.6 million Venezuela bolivars. All right, so this has to make a correction. These people have to get the government together so this doesn't happen. Venezuela's 2018 GDP was smaller than that of Connecticut. Do you really think the GDP is going to continue to stay that low? Do you really think the value of the Venezuelan dollar is going to stay this low? Do you think the people are going to continue to tolerate this? No, they're not. Eventually, this guy's already tried a couple of times to get out of Venezuela. So he's trying to negotiate with Trump on a way to exit. Look at Venezuela's estimated unemployment rate stands at a staggering 44%. So what happens when people aren't working? They're not paying taxes. If they're not paying taxes, that means the government is struggling. There's more money going out than there is coming in. So you get in there and they need to have Trump go over and fix this and get jobs going for them. But anyways, nonetheless, once people start getting back to work, it strengthens the dollar because more people are working, the more taxes they pay. Same thing in Iraq, all right? Venezuela's commercial output may contract by 25% this year, the worst performance seen in a nation since Libya's civil war. So the point I'm trying to make is by bringing all this up to you, look at this. In 2007, oil production accounted for about 95% of Venezuela's export earnings. So here we go. If you have a major event that happens and it reduces their oil production, then the whole country collapses. It's on the verge now. It's not going to stay there. So to me, Venezuela is probably my number one priority. I am keeping an eye on it. Well, actually, I'll say right now, buying Mexican pesos right now, Mexico dollars, those are my number one goals, to stack up on those a little bit. But keep an eye on Venezuela. It's not going to do any good to buy the currency now. It has no value. All right. It doesn't do any good whatsoever. You can imagine that, the bank's already been pillaged. We see the currency they've been looted. The currency's all over the street. Do you think they're going to turn around and give this same currency value again? It's all over the place. All right, so no, that means a new government's got to get in there. They got to get stabilized. A new currency will be minted, and that's the currency we want to grab, okay? Anyway, so people have been asking me about what other currencies to keep an eye on. These are the ones that I'm keeping an eye on. Mexico for sure, and Venezuela, I'm keeping an eye on it. But any of those countries over there that surround the South China Sea would be a good bet, okay? So hit the like button. Subscribe, share, leave a comment. Tell me what kind of currencies you guys are all balling and why. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.